broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And welcome to our Rainbow CPaaS Talk to Experts webinar for our valued developer partners. My name is Ludovic Leclerc, and I am a product marketing manager for our cloud solutions at ALE. And I am your webinar host for today. I would like first to thank you for taking the time today to learn more about Rainbow Cloud Services. Your feedback and questions are very valuable to us always. Before we get started, I would like to cover a few housekeeping items for this webinar. So please note that the call today is being recorded. If you have any objection, please disconnect now. All lines will be muted during the presentation. After the presentation, we will take questions from the attendees. You may post a written question at any time during the webinar via the question tab in the webinar panel. And those questions will be addressed during the Q&A period at the end. The presentation today is being shared live. For those of you who have connected online, you may also download a copy of the presentation from the handout section in the control panel. After the live webinar today, we will send you the YouTube link to review the recording of this webinar. Our speaker today is Olivier Angnot, one of our technical lead developer on Rainbow. Hello, Olivier.
Hello, David.
Okay, so without further ado, I leave you the microphone.
Okay, so welcome everybody, and thank you for attending this third webinar about Rainbow and its API and SDK ecosystem. I'm very happy to be here again and to share with you our progresses on Rainbow. So this webinar is the third episode of a webinar saga that aims to help you understanding Rainbow and the way to build applications that use Rainbow APIs. So like in the two previous episodes, I will speak on three things. So first, I will give you a status on where we stand, on what has been done recently. Then I will focus on some Rainbow concept to give you the key elements to know. And finally, I will show you some elements that will become soon and will be soon available for you. But this webinar will be a little bit different than the two previous ones. Today I will mix slides and code to show you some best practices around authentication. So to start, I will just introduce myself. So my name is Olivier Angnot. I work at Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise on Rainbow for several years. I'm now in charge of developing our mobile Rainbow application while continuing promoting our Rainbow platform for developers. And so during this webinar, I will share with you our progress on Rainbow CPaaS. And as in the previous webinar, some word of my objective. So I built this webinar first for developers because I will explain how to do things, and I will speak about some technical aspects, the new APIs, the new cool feature, and all the things already played with or you will be able to use soon. And secondly, I built this webinar for decision maker because I will give you the opportunity to see what are the interests of moving to Rainbow API and how application based on Rainbow could save time to you and your end users or end customers, and also make them happier and more efficient. And finally, I target architects and IT people who want to know how secure Rainbow is and how it works to be able to understand how data are managed and will be interconnected to the existing one. So this webinar tries to address points on, in fact, in these three areas. And so let's go by a quick recap on what we did during the 2 previous months. So first, in terms of developers, we reached 1,300 accounts registered. So in fact, this is about 200 of new developers who have subscribed in the last 2 months. So you are now coming from more than 100 countries. And regarding application, we are very close to reach the 300 application deployed now in 10 months. And so as they are deployed, all these applications are in use, and so real user can play with them. And if we totalize all requests done by this application, we are now above 80 million of calls per month. I speak about chat message send, as well as all the administrative tasks done, such as provisioning user, creating bubble, etc. So as you can see, our platform continues to grow rapidly month after month. Regarding the technical achievements, let me first speak about the SDK for web application. I want to benefit from that webinar to remind you that we updated the Angular dependency to its latest branch 1.x. So if you use a recent SDK web, which means concretely if you use a SDK 1.54 or more recent, you have to upgrade the Angular library to the version 1.7.5. If you don't update this dependency, the SDK will fail to initialize. And for those who stay with the SDK version lower than 1.54, you have to keep the old version of Angular 1.5.7. So please check this point carefully if you decide to update your SDK. And because if you want to be supported by our support team, you need to stick to this version mentioned, even if you succeed by using another version. Now, if we have a look to the last improvement we made the last 2 months, first we add some new features to the Rainbow API Hub. And the first is in the billing section, we added 2 things. The first is that you are now able to configure a SEPA mandate when using Rainbow on making business from an European country. So if you don't want to share your credit card anymore, you can now use this alternative way. And additionally to that, you can now delete any other registered payment methods that are no more used. So for example, if you switch to the SEPA mandate, you can remove your credit card registered from the hub. Then we just released the possibility to configure and use the OAUTH mechanism in order to secure the login of existing Rainbow users when they connect from a third-party application. So by default, any of your existing application supports now the OAuth mechanism. That way of logging is activated by default and so can be used now. So we added this new panel in your application screen to let you configure it. So to use OAuth, you have to enter a callback URL in order to receive the access token needed to connect to Rainbow. It's just simple. You just have to configure that callback. So I will describe more in detail how to implement that in the next part of that webinar. So normally at the end of this webinar, you will be able to use it. Now, if we look at what we made recently in the different SDKs, the first thing is about the channel. Remember, we announced it in the previous webinar that we will rework the channels method in order to make them easier to understand and globally to have the same naming in all SDK. So now it's available, we made it, and in the SDK 1.56, all the channel part has been rewritten. And for iOS, we added, like for the other SDK, a sample to help you starting using a concrete case. The other points to mention is that we made a lot of change in the SDK for Node.js. So for example, we added a lot of method like for deflecting a call. And so I encourage you to have a look to the changelog for a complete list. I will not share you now. Regarding the web SDK, as mentioned, we added the support of the OAuth protocol. And in fact, we support both modes, the authorization code grant and the implicit grant flow. So I will explain it, like I said, later in that webinar, the different cases. And additionally to that, we made other changes like having the possibility to add a subject when calling someone, and when in a conference, you can now share your screen or an application so that all participants will be able to see that. And so I let you open your Rainbow API Hub after this webinar to discover all the different changes for that SDKs. So that's all for the update regarding the 2 last months. Now I will make a deep dive into the authentication procedure. And for that webinar, I want to show you the source code of 2 demos to understand how it works. So my goal is to show you the best practices to secure your application. And first, I will show you a brief recap of the kinds of Rainbow applications that exist with the associated way of authenticating Rainbow users. Then I will show you 2 slides that explain the different demo, and after that, I will stop this presentation and go to my source code to show you the code. So, as I explained, the main goal of that webinar is to show you how to secure your Rainbow application regarding your users. As you know, depending on the type of application you are developing, the way to authenticate your Rainbow user is different. In the right side, so the green area, you have the Rainbow third-party application. This is the application where the user don't know that internally the application they use connect to Rainbow to bring the communication features. In this application, I will show you how to implement a secure way to connect to Rainbow without sharing your application secret. This will be the goal of the first demo. At the opposite, so in the left, in the blue area, you have the application where the user use their Rainbow account to sign in. So in that case, the user knows that he will connect to Rainbow. This is the case when you are using our Rainbow application, but also Rainbow sibling application or series, such as a Google extension for Rainbow. And for this application, we put in place recently a new way to secure the authentication based on the OAuth protocol. So I will show you how to implement this method in your application. This will be the topic for the second demo. So the next slide will just describe the different scenarios, and then I will show you the code. So let's start with the first demo. And in order to keep it simple, I choose the following scenario. Imagine a user visiting your website and asking for more information on the product. You need a way to connect this visitor to a bot or an agent who will answer the question and so help that user. In that demo, he will discuss with the bot. And the user who visits the site will be anonymous in order to avoid having to authenticate him first. But regarding Rainbow, this is the same way to handle this case. Instead of creating a new Rainbow guest account, you will have to authenticate him to your existing backend, but you will use the same way to secure the application secret at the end. So in that demo, we will use a web application based on React.js that will ask the backend, your backend application, for a Rainbow token. So the backend application will ask Rainbow to create an account, to authenticate him, and then once the backend will receive the token to send it back to the application. And the application will in fact use this token, connect to Rainbow, retrieve the bot identity, and then exchange message with the bot. So additionally to that, we will put in place a Node.js backend application to keep safe the application secret and in order to not send it to the front-end application. So this demo will illustrate all this point mentioned from the first interaction of the user to the message exchange with the bot. The second demo is exactly the same scenario, but it will now ask the user to connect using his Rainbow credential sent to the OAuth mechanism. This new authentication process is now officially supported in Rainbow. This will show you how to implement the OAuth authorization code grant mechanism, which is the most secure way to do OAuth. This method uses a server that will secure your application secret and your OAuth exchange. So basically, the application will ask Rainbow to display a secure authentication and authorization page. And then, once authorized, a request will be sent to Rainbow to get the authorization code. Your backend will then exchange that authorization code to a real token that will, as for the previous demo, send it back to the client application that will use it, and then connect to Rainbow, and unlike in the previous demo, get the bot identity and exchange chat message with the bot. So the step 4 to 6 are exactly the same as for the previous demo. And just to mention, additionally to the authorization code grant flow, we support the OAuth implicit flow without a server. So this case will not be shown today because it's less secure and should be used only for demo. So let's go to the code now. So I split my screen in two parts. So in the left side, you will see the web application, and on the right side, you will see the source code. So I'll just enlarge a little bit, and zoom to be sure you see the screen. So I made a project which is in fact which contain the two parts. So the server side. So we will first review the code for the server side, and then go back to the client side. We will use and connect to that server. So first, as I explained, the server is in fact not the JS application. So you are perhaps familiar with that application. So I will show you first the package.json, just to explain that we will use for sure the Rainbow Note SDK, and we will use another library, Express, to offer the possibility to configure easily routes, so REST API, to be able to make the link between the client-side application we will call API from that server. Okay, and we have other little dependencies, but I will just explain the two important ones. And if we have a look to the Explorer, the File Explorer, I choose to split the server demo into several files. So I have specific files dedicated to handle all the Rainbow stuff that we'll show you later. And I have a specific file that will have the responsibility to define all the routes accessible from the client side to the server application. And additionally to that, I have a small file that will just handle some logs into the console. So this is my development environment. I just open on the bottom terminal console. In fact, two terminal consoles. The first is where the server is currently running. And I have another console where, in fact, we have the web application that is running. So the web application is here on the screen. So the web application is running on port 3000, and the server is running on port 3002. So now if we start what I put in that server-side application, so in fact, the server-side application is based on the Node.js starter kit. So the SDK starter kit we put in place on our GitHub. So you can get it and start like I did for that demo. So we have first an index.js file that is called. So this is the first module that is called when the demo starts. So what I did here is just to initialize the SDK using the both identity and the both credential. So in fact, just to mention, I will use a unique identity that will be the bot, and so that have the administrative right to create account and to authenticate them. Okay, so I start the SDK with that account, and then until it is okay, I start my router to define the different routes. So first, we will have a look to the router to show you that finally I define only one route. So this is the code that is here. So the client, when the client application will click or will ask for help, in fact, this is this API that will be called and that will create, using the SDK, the guest account, okay, authenticate it, and then answer by sending the token and the bot ID to connect. So on that request has been done from the client side will be able to connect because it will receive the token and the bot ID to connect. And so if we now have a look to the SDK module that handles that case, you will see the different methods. So the first is the method that initialize the SDK. So we just start the SDK, And for that demo, we have to subscribe to any incoming messages, so that the bot will be able to listen and to answer to message coming that from the guest user visiting the website. And then I have my two methods that will first create a guest user. So in fact, that method just call a method in the Node.js SDK, create anonymous guest user, and that method just require time to live in seconds. So I will create a guest user that will be able to connect to Rainbow and discuss with the bot for 1 hour. After this time, the guest account will no more be able to discuss with the bot. So you can put any time you want in that method. And then once I have created that account, I will ask the Node.js SDK to ask a token on behalf of that account. And this is extremely important to do that on the server side, because using that method, you will need to send the application ID and the application secret. And if you do that on server side, you will not have to send the application secret to the client side. So we will see later that on the client side, I start the SDK for web without entering an application secret. And finally, on that part, once I receive a message coming from a guest user, I first mark that message as read. So in order to inform the user that the bot correctly received the message and read it. And then I check if it's a message of chat, because for that demo, I don't want to answer to group message. And once it's okay, using the GID information containing in that message, I try to find who asked for help, so asking Rainbow. And then I found that contact, so it can be a guest user. So in that case, there is no first name, no last name. So the bot will just answer by sending the message, hello, how can I help you? And if it is a real user, so for the second demo, I will just answer by hello, Oliver, or hello, another name, how can I help you? And for the server side, that's all. So we have defined all that we need to handle that scenario. So the server is already running, so we have nothing to do here. We can now switch to the client-side application. So the client-side application is, I choose to build that application using the React framework. So it's a framework created by Facebook. And it comes with Create React App, so an application that helps you to start with React and to be able to have a complete development environment without having to did it manually. So if I open it, you have already the possibility to, for example, to refresh the browser each time you make a change in your source code. The first thing I want to show you in that router is for sure that we have also a package.json file that in order to include all the dependencies. So we have two important dependencies. So first, the web SDK, the Rainbow Web SDK. And the second is all the library needed by React. Okay, so, but as you can see, the Rainbow dependency is mentioned in the dev dependency, not in the dependency. This is because currently you can't import the Rainbow Web SDK as any other recent framework using React. So you have to, that's why I will open the index.html file to show you that you need to load the SDK and all the dependency manually using a script tag in your index.html file. So we are working to improve and to be able to just import the file that works today in React application, but today it's not yet supported, so you need to load your script using that way. So okay for that. So after that, in this React application, the first file that is called is the index.js file. So perhaps it's the first time you see a React application, so it's not complicated. So we just wait for the DOM to be ready on that point, and then we wonder what should be displayed in the web page. So the first thing that should be displayed is a router. So we are not on server side, but on client side for application, single page application, we have the same possibility to make a router that will help us to navigate between different pages on the front-end application. So if we open the code for the router, you will see that in fact it's very simple. We have a default page that is displayed, that is the app component, that is currently displayed on screen. And then on the user will be authenticated, we will go to the signed page, and so to display another component, which is the signed component. So you understand that what is displayed on the screen is in fact what is inside the app.js file, and this is a React component. So it's not also complicated. A component in React is in fact a mix of JavaScript code and HTML code that is rendered on the page. So as you can see, we have the title, we have the logo, and we have a small title. And I added for that demo a button on that page. And for the second demo, we will do some modification to display another button. And so once the user will click on that button, it will call another function till described here, and that function will just ask, in fact, our server, so the code I show you on the server side, to ask for a guest account and to get the bot ID, so the bot identity to contact. And once we receive it, we will just switch to the signed page with that access token, and so ask Rainbow to connect ask the SDK to connect to Rainbow. So if we go to the SDK code, so like for the server side, I forget to mention that I have a dedicated file that all the Rainbow stuff is responsible, and another module to have the log. So that first method is very simple. We just ask the route we create on server side. So we ask our server on port 3002 with that URL for a guest token. And we just use jQuery to send the request. And then we send back the answer. And as you saw, in the app.js application, we then switch to the sign page. So the router will switch to the signed component. And so if we have a look to the signed component, what is doing here is that we got all the variable we receive from the server, and then on the component is displayed, we try to connect to Rainbow using the token, the bot identifier, and the type of connection we used. So if we have a look to that method, in fact, we are doing three things. We will load the SDK, we will sign in with the token, and then we will send the message to the bot. So we can have a look to the three functions before launching the demo. So the load SDK function is where you will see that when I initialize the SDK, I don't enter an app secret. So I will start just using the application ID and not using an app secret. Because in fact, I don't need it. So in that method, I just, like when using the SDK, I bootstrap the SDK because of Angular. So I need to do that task. And then I set the level of log I want to use in my application. And after that, I initialize the SDK and I wait for the onReady event to be sure that the SDK is ready to be used. Okay, and once I do that, I just subscribe to any incoming message that are in fact the answer that will come from the bot. So I define a callback, and for that demo, I don't do any UI, so I just will display the message received in the web console. And then the demo will be ended. The other functions are so the signing with the token. So once the SDK is ready, we just sign with the token we receive from the server. So the token already contains all the authentication procedure. So we don't need to have the application secret. So we just say the SDK use that token and connect to Rainbow with that identity. So in fact, this is by using the guest identity created on server side. And finally, with the ID of the bot, I use the SDK to search, to make a search using that ID. I found the bot. Then I need to open a conversation with the bot. And once the conversation is open, I send the message, hello, I need help. And normally the bot will answer to that message. So that's all for the code for the first demo. So we can start. So you will see that in that first part of the screen, we will switch and change to the sign component, and all the demo will be displayed here. So we will see a lot of message in the console to explain what happened. So I will launch the demo. So now all happened. So we first start the demo. We ask to create an account. So in fact, we send a request, and we will see that on server side, we registering a new account. It's just here. So we create it. Then we receive that token on the client side. We switch to the sign page, so I can see the URL change. And after that, with the token received, we connect to Rainbow, we send the message, and we receive, hello, how can I help you? So now the website is connected to Rainbow and with the bot. And if we define an interface to send or exchange message, you will be able to send other message to the bot and to discuss. And if we have, as we have the SDK for web, you will be able to escalate to audio and video with a real person. So that's all for the first demo. Now, if we want to use our Rainbow account to connect to the bot. So first, I will go back to the first page of my demo, and we will add another button on the app.js to be able to connect using my account. So I save the file, and as you can see, automatically on the web page, we have a new button, Login with Rainbow. So you can connect to the Rainbow API Hub. We put in place a guideline to help you designing and putting in place that kind of button to connect to Rainbow. And in the client side, as you can see, we have another method that will be called when the user will click on that button. So in fact, I explained that to use the OAuth, you need to configure your application. So for that, to be sure, I will open a console. And as the demonstration is made on the Sandbox platform, I will use the Rainbow CLI to configure my application. So first, I will connect to the Sandbox. Okay, and then I will display information of my application. So you will see that you have two new properties that has been added to your application that you need to configure. So the first is the redirection URL that will be used for that demo. So I will configure it, in fact, to redirect, to ask Rainbow to call back my server with the authorization code once it has been generated. So you will see that this is my server that has been configured with a path to my function that will handle that case. Okay, and you have to be sure to see that the OAuth implicit ground flow is not activated because it's less secure. So by default, it's false, so you have not to change. And if you want to configure the callback URL, you have a specific command, set redirect URL. You just have to enter your application ID and then a path to your callback in your server. Sorry, and not have to execute it again, but this is the command that you will have to enter to configure your application. So I have nothing to do as my application is correctly configured. So the next step in your client side is to display the secure pop-up from Rainbow to authenticate from your application. So you have some line of code to add on your application, and this code is described from the app. You can have the source code of that from the Rainbow API hub. So no worry about that. So first, I need the application ID to enter. The second information is to choose between the implicit flow or the authentication code grant for the OAuth mechanism. So this is the code to enter for using the authorization code grant. And then you have to enter again the redirect URI that will be compared to the same you enter using the CLI or the Rainbow API hub. So I enter the same path. Be careful, you need to anchor that URI because it's a request that has been sent. And then you have to configure two other parameters. The first is the scope. So today we only support the scope all, which means that all the information will be shared between with the application. So you have not the possibility to share a part of your identity or of your Rainbow data. So today, all your information will be shared with the application. You can define an optional state in order to help you securing more your application. And once you have all these parameters, you have just to build the URL and to construct that URL, and then to ask the browser to go to that URL. So in fact, is a Rainbow API for the OAuth authorization. And that's all. For the client part. That's all because you will see that on the server side, once Rainbow will authenticate that user and authorize it, it will call back your server, and you will see that in that route, so the route that will be called by the Rainbow server, you will see that we will redirect the client application to the same page as for the previous demo, on with the same, in fact, with the same information. So the access token, the both information on the type of authorization. So on the client side, this is where the magic happens. So we will have nothing to do more. It will be like for the first demo. And remember in the slide, the step 4 to 6 are in fact the same as for the first demo. So what you need to do on Rainbow, say to your server, it's okay, I have authenticated the user. This is the token, the authorization token you receive. So in fact, it is here. So this token can be used directly by the SDK for web to connect. You need to generate a JSON web token from that access code. And so this is what is done in that method. So we just jump to the SDK, and this is the last function I will show you for that demo. So you need to contact Rainbow with the information, so with the access code received, and with the application ID and your application secret. So that's why the redirection URI should not be sent to the client side, because if you do that, you will have to use, in fact, the application secret on client side. But by doing that code on server side, you will secure your application secret here. So you made that request, you send it to Rainbow, and in the result, you will receive a refresh token and an access token. So once you receive it, we are now in the route that have been called from the server side, and we can send it back to the client. So the access token received, the bot ID to contact, and the type of authorization we made. So we can now start the second demo. I will just enlarge the screen. So now, if we are here, I will press on that button. We are now that pop-up that comes from Rainbow, so you have nothing to implement on client side for having that pop-up. This is a pop-up that comes from Rainbow. So I have to enter my Rainbow credential, my password, and you will see that you have another pop-up to inform you that the client application, so test auth grant, would like to access to your Rainbow information for the account you just signed. So you can choose to authorize, and if you authorize, you will be able to connect. And if not, if you don't want to authorize that application to have access to your Rainbow information, you decline, and so you cancel that pop-up. So I will authorize it. And as you see, I have been redirected from the server to my signed page. And then, as for the previous demo, I connect to Rainbow with the token received. I send a message to the bot, and now the bot says, "Hello, Oliver, how can I help you?" So in fact, with these two demos, you will see that I never start and use the application secret on client side. I keep it on the server, and so I show you that using these two methods, you can secure the way user will authenticate in your application. So that's all for the demo part. Now I will open again and continue the presentation. And just to make a quick recap on what I show you on the different demo. So I explained that you have two ways, in fact, to do OAuth and that works with Rainbow. So the authorization code ground, this is the way I showed you in that demo. So it is for production application. So in that way, this is a more secure way to do the OAUTH protocol. So for that, you need a backend, and you will have a refresh token that you can use to renew the authorization and the access code to a maximum time of 90 days. After that, your user will have to sign it again to your application. And for those who want to make just a quick demo using a Rainbow account, you can use the implicit code grant. So remember, you have to configure it in your application, because by default is the authorization code grant that is supported. You don't need to have a backend. So you just have to call the URL from your client side, and you will receive directly a JSON web token that the SDK can use. So no need to use a backend, no need to use an application secret, but you will have, as is less secure, to renew manually and to visit again the authorization page and the authentication page every hour. Okay, so that's why it's only for demo purpose. So I hope that now it's clear how to do that. For sure, the 2 demos I show you today will be on our GitHub, so you will be able to get it and to start from that demo to understand how it works. So that's all for that part. I will now speak about the coming feature that will be available soon on Rainbow. So regarding the Rainbow API, we have still in mind to propose a technical blog, but we need to have some article ready before publishing it. That's why the blog is not yet available today. Additionally to that, we will have more services, such as giving you the possibility to set a threshold on your API in order to be notified when you reach the free threshold on your application. So if you are above the free threshold, you will be alerted, and you will have the possibility to block your application, but it will up to you to decide if you want only to be notified or if you want to block completely your application, because if you do that, all your users will not be able to connect to Rainbow anymore. And regarding the SDK, we are continuously adding new APIs and guide to our existing SDKs, and we are working to improve our Rainbow API Hub website to facilitate the access to all that documentation. And finally, regarding the API for server-side application, we are finalizing our server-to-server API so that you will be able to build Rainbow backend application in any languages, in PHP, in Python, any of you want. So more information on that will be come soon, I hope, perhaps in the next webinar. And I can't close that webinar without announcing that our new SDK for C# is now available on the Nugget platform. So this is a first public release. And so this first version has for sure not yet the same level of features than the other SDK, but you can already start using it to manage your contacts, to have chat conversation between 2 users. And in the coming months, we will add all these missing features to that SDK. If you connect right now to the hub.openrainbow.com, you will see that that SDK is available with 6 guides to help you starting with that SDK. So it's available on several platforms. By sharing with you this SDK in an early stage, if I could say that, our goal is to get a lot of feedbacks from you. So try it on the different Microsoft platform to help us building the best SDK we can. And in fact, this SDK for C# is a new piece of what I call our Rainbow CPaaS umbrella, dedicated to connect people and transform the way they work. We are continuing giving to you the best thing to help you building applications that help people either to save time by being more efficient and to let them take the right decision by accessing to the right data at the right moment. So this is still our mantra, and so this SDK C# is now a new piece of that Rainbow umbrella. So in the coming months, other major elements will be added to that umbrella that I can't wait to share them to you. So keep connected to the Rainbow API Hub for discovering what we are building in the next months. So that's all for that presentation. I hope that you have enjoyed it and that all information shared will help you building your application. The next webinar will be either on August or in September. We will have to choose the date. In case you want to see again the previous episode or this one, you can go on our YouTube channels called CPaaS Style to Expert. And so thank you for attending this webinar about Rainbow building blocks, and I wish you a happy development and a great success with Rainbow. I give the hand now to Ludovic and Luis for the open question session. Bye.
Yes. Thank you, Olivier. Stay with us because maybe there will be some interesting question that you can answer. So we open the floor for your question. For now, we don't have any question. Just one remark concerning the PowerPoint that is attached as a handout. Someone has some difficulties to download and see the slides, so I hope that I tried myself downloading it from the webinar platform, from the control panel, and it's okay in the handout section. It was okay on my side. If you have any issue, please tell us. Anyway, we will make the slides available with the recording. Okay, there is one question from Miguel. Hello, Miguel. What is the difference between OAuth 2 and SAML authentication? They seem to be very similar. Olivier?
Yes, this is different way, in fact, to connect and to authenticate each other. But the difference is that OAuth is more a protocol to allow third-party application like we made on Rainbow to connect and use your application. Because in fact, what I didn't show you today is once you have authorized an application to connect using your account, you will be alerted through an email that another application use your authorization or use your identity. So this is the same thing that when you connect using Google or Facebook identity. And in the Rainbow web client, you will see in your settings that you have now a security panel with a list of applications that have been authorized by you to connect, and you can at any time dismiss that authorization in case of this is not you or anything. But in fact, this is another way to connect using SAML. So, but SAML is not us that we are the provider. So for SAML, is rely on Microsoft or other kind. So for OAuth, we are in fact the provider of the authorization for connecting.
Okay, clear. Another question from Alejandro. Hello, Alejandro. Is compatible Rainbow with Edge, Microsoft Edge?
Yeah, I think this question is here because as you may heard recently, Microsoft decided to change the browser engine from his Edge browser to switch to the same as that is used in the Chrome, so to Chromium. So for sure, in the next month, Rainbow. So I don't know if you are speaking about Rainbow, our Rainbow web client, but in the next one, for sure, our Rainbow web client will be compliant with Edge if Edge do the same thing as Chrome. So this is not. I can't answer completely to that question, but I hope that we will be compliant. And for the SDK. So SDK is already compliant with all navigator, all browser, starting with Internet Explorer 11, even if now it's no more used. But there are some limitations on WebRTC. So today we still support only Firefox on Chrome, but now as Edge will use the same engine as Chrome, for sure in the next month we will be for free be compliant with Edge.
Okay, clear. Thank you. Another question from RF. Hello, RF. Can you make the code available for education purpose? So.
I don't know if I correctly understand the question, but for sure the code can be adapted to any case. I show you how to use anonymous, I can see guest access, but for sure you can use already existing account and mixed with a Rainbow account that will be used internally. This is what has been already done in a lot of CPaaS Rainbow application. So yes, for me there is nothing different, and the code can be available for education purpose. We can show that that code in the education to students if this is the goal, but no problem for that.
I think that the question is more related to how can the attendees of this webinar access the source code you have used for the demo.
So as explained, the source code can be used. I will put it on GitHub.
Okay.
I will be with the CPaaS just after the webinar, so you will be able to get it, to modify it, and to do everything you want with that source code.
Okay, clear. Okay, and there is a comment from Alejandro. Yes, so the question related to compatibility Edge was related to the web SDK, actually.
Yeah, so for sure, the web SDK support all the browser. We are currently in progress to support the Safari, so to be able to make WebRTC call on the Safari browser. On the desktop, as well as on an iPhone. So to work to support the WebKit web engine on WebRTC. So in the next month, normally our SDK for web should be able to make audio and video call from any browser to any other kind of application or browser.
Okay, clear. Thank you, Olivier. I don't see other question. So if there is no more question, I think we will finish this webinar session. No new question. Okay. So thank you very much for your attention and your questions. Also, it's always valuable. Please stay connected at the end of this webinar, because we have a short survey for us to get your feedbacks and suggestions for next sessions. Thank you very much, and have a great day. Thank you, Olivier. Thank you, Doris.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.